the news the week after the election, and I was taken aback by some calls and some conversations that I was a part of. And a lot of people in my circle expressed dismay by the fact that our president, President Obama, was sitting at a table with his head down because he was disappointed they had lost the House. It's the House, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't keep track of all that stuff.
Even though she's in government.
Even though I'm in government. Some of the comments were that this was a sign of weakness of our president because his head was bowed. And my position was, he's a human being and he has a right to be disappointed. And we, as countrymen, it's our responsibility to be supportive of him when things are good and when things are bad. So, as a result of that, when we were talking about what we should talk about today, that was very close to my heart. This man represents each and every one of us, as long as he is in office. And I was just wondering, how can we as citizens of the United States have a better relationship with our country? I'm a strong believer that whatever you put out there will come back to us. So just as it will come back to us as individuals, it will come back to us as a nation. So how do we begin to change our mindsets so that we are grateful for where we are in our country because we're at peace? And in light of all the other things that the potential bomb threats and all those other things, we're relatively safe with where we live. And I'm just very disturbed by all the anger and all the negativity towards our national leadership. So what do you think?
Well, firstly, I definitely want to throw this out to everyone that this won't be like a political conversation. This is a conversation of our hearts as people and how we contribute to the land that we happen to live in. So just for the genesis of that, I know that when it comes to talking about leadership and political parties, I don't know what kicks into people, but they just become all, warrior on everybody, this side, that side, and this side. This is not about that tonight. I think the photographer, he might have gotten a very unique shot, and then sold that picture to a real good writer when the Democrats lost. Was just a wonderful story to just put together. A very, very dear friend of mine who did a movie of the woman in Liberia who actually worked to overcome Charles Smith, who was creating a lot of coup and awful, vicious acts in the country. She went to Liberia to cover a story and how these women, both Christians and Muslims, came together and sat in peace to overthrow this dictator. And when she went for footage, to cover the footage on this story, she barely got any footage about the women. And the women were actually the genesis and the reason why he left that country. And she had seen a part where, I won't call the media station, but the media station covered only like 1/10 of the story, which was the truth. And the 90% of the rest of the whole story was not covered, and that was the actual story. So what I'd like us to continue to keep reminding is that the media does its best to offer the best part of the story, but I can't necessarily say that I believe everything that I hear is reflected to me in the media. I do take it with a grain of salt in terms of it is a perspective. If I see the current leadership of the country in which I love and I live in with his head down, and then at the headlines it's saying Obama looks weak because the Democrats have lost the House, I won't accept that. I'll accept that maybe they took a good picture. And this is the way that the right is putting the story. But judging from that man's character, we have never seen anything weak about him. So how come now he's weak because the Democrats lose? I don't think that will be his trigger to become a weak man. I think weakness is not about the fact that you can be humble in front of your country to say, I am disappointed that my brothers and sisters in my country have not remembered what I inherited and how devastatingly of a condition I stepped into this country with. Like this was really a country sinking. And the fact that I have tried my best to work with people on both sides in unity to try to get some change. And when you see that this person has worked very hard and has tried and has had many walls put up against them, I see an article like that, I don't give it any time or energy, because I know that he's not a weak character. He has not shown that yet. He has not been unfaithful to his wife. I've not heard that he has stolen any money from the government. I've not heard that he has been lying. Those are things that you attach to a weak character. But when somebody is humble, he's extremely strong. And perhaps our country might need a little bit of the definition of what it means to be a humble leader, is to be a leader who can hold up something that is sinking. Like I think he has been trying to keep the pieces together. And I wonder, you know, how many individuals could actually walk into a company, a job, a relationship, a country that is so disfragmented and is so broken and actually believe that they can fix it. It takes a big heart and it takes a big spirit. And so when the conversation came into play that he seemed that he was not really strong enough to voice his feelings, I would just, you know, respond to the conversation that I think you're only seeing part of the picture, but never underestimate humility as a form of weakness, because it is not. It is not. In our teachings of the Brahma Kumaris, I've heard time and time again, our founding member of the organization, Brahma Baba, he used to always tell us that you bow now, but you will be victorious tomorrow. There's a deep secret to that.
Well, that raises another question. Does our country have a soul? And if it does have a soul, how do we have a relationship?
How about if I throw that back to you? What's the meaning of soul when you ask that question? Does our country have a soul?
Well, I'm thinking about, did somebody say something about the soul?
I just remarked, collective soul of the people.
I like that, collective soul of the people.
I like that. Shakespeare said, what's the city but its people?
Yes.
Right? So tell me, what do you think a soul might be?
Well, I like what he said, because we all have souls.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want this country to be the best country, then we would want to have a more compassionate relationship as it relates to our soul. And I just don't see that happening. And although I'm very conscious of who I am and my relationship with my country, it's very challenging to invite others to do the same. So how would one do that?
Start to meditate.
Aha, meditation.
I've been to a lot of countries around the world. And I met a man recently from the Netherlands. And he had visited India, and he was in India for quite a few months. And he says, I don't understand it. I go to India and I see poverty like I've seen nowhere else on the planet. But when I look into the eyes, there is no sorrow. There is happiness. And I look at my own children who I've given everything to, and they're not happy. And so it brings me back to what soul really is. It's not about the abundance of wealth. It's not about having physical freedom. It's not about all the fancy cars and the great clothes and the great media apparatus and things that they have. I heard that 80% of the media from America is distributed throughout the entire world. And that's where everybody that sees what we're doing in America, from America, and how we are as Americans, all tend to say, I would love to be like an American. because it looks like such a happy-go-lucky, easygoing life. And what was interesting is that when 9/11 approached, there was another side of America, which I think many people were not even aware of, that we were, or we are, quite innocent, pretty much free-flowing, free-spirited, might not necessarily come from more ancient ideologies and techniques like a country like India or Africa or Japan or China, etc. And I think that what would bring America's power to the forefront, and I'll say America's power back as a steward for the world, or as a parent for the world, would be spirituality. Would be for its citizens to begin to practice a more conscientious, more introspective approach towards the reason why they're living in the world, period, and much less in a country that has an abundance. Compared to what an American has, and then you go to a village in India, it's like day and night. Or you go to a village in Africa, it's like day and night. But I've been to the villages in India, and I've sat in the mud huts with the mothers and the daughters and the kids, and the spark and the happiness that you get in this exchange over a cup of tea. I've gone to the biggest mansions and the biggest house, and you just sit there and go, yes. And I mean, that's all fine and dandy, but it's as if there is not this trust or this feeling to just be yourself. Just to be. I don't have to try to prove to you who I am based on my title or my position. I don't have to show you that I'm worthy or valuable because of the clothes that I wear.
But Jenna, that's what being an American is all about. Having the big house and the car and the great job. I mean, that's what it's all about.
It is a place that I remembered coming over with my parents. It was a place of opportunity. And it was a place in which you worked, and then you achieved something from what you worked for. I think like every other culture, not just America, desires tend to get the best of you. And I recall a conversation I had with somebody who wanted a raise from her job and was very distressed that the raise wasn't coming in. And we talked about this. And I said, well, had you ever thought about reducing your desires? And the person had never given that any thought. They only gave the thought that I needed a raise. And so it's just a matter of getting the right awareness about things. And we have so much. It's just that through commercialism, capitalism, and this abundance of saying, I need this, and if I don't get it, I'm not going to be worthy. We've got to break that habit and go back to basics as a country and as a people, as a person. Because what do we really need? Shelter? How big does the house have to be? I live in an area where the houses are so huge, but there are only 3 people living in there. You don't need such a big house with 3 people or 4 people living in there. So you need shelter, and what else you need? Food, right? And water. How much can you eat in one day? Not that much, really. Right? You need something with 4 wheels, right? Okay, 2. But it should at least get you to your destination, right? And so what I'm saying is that if you just look at life, just look at your life, and if you really want to be happy, do you really need as much as you have already? Because sometimes when we attain too many toys, it takes a lot of soul energy to work to sustain them. So yes, the American dream is a house with a white picket fence,
Yes.
a dog, don't forget the dog,
The dog.
don't forget the puppy, very important, and a nice little car. In those old days it was a Ford or a Chevrolet, now it's a Toyota or a Lexus or something. But you basically needed the basic essentials, and what happened is that we have moved away from being aware of that. And so we think we are in a deficit, we think we are lacking, we think we can't make ends meet because we're living above our means due to desires. Now, when we practice reflection and soul consciousness, we start to feel a sense of fullness return to the spirit, return to the soul. And when the soul starts to feel more full and abundant on its own, it will reduce its desire for so many material things to give it temporary happiness. And that's why the soul of America, it really requires an injection of spirituality. And why you see places like a meditation museum doing well is because the soul of America is awakening, and it is saying, we are now ready to turn inwards, to begin to rebuild our power, our integrity as a country and as a people. I believe it was Kennedy that says, ask from your, what's it again?
What is it, you guys? Ask what your country.
Ask not what you can do for your country.
That's right. But what your
Ask
country.
not what your country can do for you, but what you.
That's it.
So ask not what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country that would make your country do for you? I mean, this is the law of karma, isn't it? Is it that I'm just going to keep sitting down and waiting for something to happen? Or is it that I'm going to rise up and do something and make something happen for what I call the country that I'm living in now, which I call home, but I have to give something back to. I have to give something back to the country. If I keep taking and taking and taking and taking, it will become like a developing country. That's how developing countries became the way that they are now. The people, the citizens, took so much, it had nothing more to give. Because the people were giving nothing back to each other or to its land. So it dried up. Then it started to go out and beg for help. We're at that critical point in America, whether you are an American or non-American, but living in the country of America. We're at a critical point now to make that choice. Do we continue with the pattern that we're continuing with and end up a developing country? Or do we begin to invest back in ourselves, making our country stronger? And that investment is a spiritual investment. I don't think a lot of these countries that used to be great superpowers or great countries, they never expected in their wildest dreams they would end up in the way that they did. They weren't born like that. The countries didn't start out with a lack. Countries all started out, most of them, with abundance. What the citizens did while living in the country determined its course. What are we going to do as residents of America, living in a country that has invited people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, into the doors and say, do whatever you wish. Here are some guidelines, since so many of us, and if we want to live peacefully and freely and happily, it's to our advantage to follow this. And pay some taxes, because we're going to make your roads and everything okay. We have no problem. It's going to pay our bills. And you can do whatever you want. Is it such a bad deal? You look in this room alone, and it has so many countries here already. If I was in China, a different group. If I was in India, a different. It's an amazing country. It is an amazing country. And when we started to fall into that spiral down road, with the economy, you could see that greed factor involved because of that. And I was in India recently with an actor who's doing a beautiful new HBO television show called Tremaine, and he was saying that he's creating a movie called Greed Rehabilitation. That there needs to be some sort of a rehabilitation for individuals to look at what their greed factor is doing, not only to themselves, but to the children that they're going to be leaving behind. And so this greed is so connected to desire and the fact that the soul is discontented with itself. And because it is discontented with itself, it continues to be externally driven to find solutions, and it's not an external solution. America's solution is not an external one. It is an internal solution. Do you think so? I think so.
Well, that raises another question. Would America's soul be in a state of contentment if there was no media? No media. I find that in my relationship with my country, in order for me to appreciate my leaders for who they are, I don't watch the news, because we're persuaded to form an opinion about our leaders based on the media that we're exposed to. And it's not always very balanced.
Media is a profoundly powerful tool, and it's one that we must appreciate. There will be good, and there will be best, and there will be those who've sold their soul for sensationalism. Mm-hmm. And it is something that's, it's inevitable. You know, I don't know if you've ever been in a position in your life where you just somehow woke up one day and you were different and you had compromised your values because you thought that the only way you could survive was that you had to do this. And I think in certain areas of the media, it sells its own people short, thinking that's what they need.
Yeah.
Because from my understanding, studying journalism and being in the School of Journalism in the past, behind the scenes, it's that a journalist thinks that this is what the people want to see. So they, you know, manifest the whole story so that it suits what they think you need. And then what happens, if you're constantly in front of a television feeding you, you don't think on your own anymore. You are being told what to think. It just continues to be a recording in your system. Your emotions are fed by that system. And if the media is not able to support what is healthy and healing and truthful, I remember in my early days when we used to want the media to come and study events that we were doing, they never came. Meditation, peace and harmony program, okay, no, but you heard some guy got shot next door and was killing someone, and they thought that was really news.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that the media seems to need a kind of a wake-up call that its people are thirsty for good stories. Its people are thirsty to be enlightened and to be enriched. And so when the media begins to sell another side of the character of somebody who has to lead our country, they're making money. But I have to sit in stillness and do my own research and make my own decisions. But sometimes we're lazy to do that. Mm-hmm. It's just easier to go click, so let me see what CNN is saying, Fox, ABC, NBC, and then let me see what the newspaper is saying. It's just easy if I'm fed it, because that's the habit I have. I am accustomed to being fed emotions. I'm not accustomed to sorting out the answers, researching it, and taking that time that I'm wasting in front of the television to do my own homework, to decide who I think would be the best person to help me, you know, in my country and so on. So media has its pros, and it has its cons, and it is an agent for positive change. I'm hopeful. I think it will turn around, because when I look at sometimes the faces of journalists, they're not happy. They're not. If you look at their faces, there's no spark of happiness in the eyes of the journalist, because even they themselves have just, it's as if their soul is gone. And I think when they go home at night, whether they're married or unmarried, they go home, what do they have? There's no love. And what is needed to make a soul strong is love. And at some point in time, the soul surrenders to that, because it says, I can't endure the pain that I've inflicted on myself much longer. So if you're in the power seat of the media decision maker, you will wake up one day and decide, I don't want to go that way anymore. and you will get good stories. So the good thing is that in America we have 500 channels, so you can choose one. We now have a choice. And if you don't choose the ones that are negatively driven, eventually they'll go off the air.
You ready for my next question? So our collective souls forms the soul of America. And I think the reason that you and I are so connected is because our souls are connected. And we see each other, not so much on the outside, but for who we are on the inside. So how do we create that throughout the nation?
That's a great question. Wake up early in the morning. Take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour before you get into your day-to-day routine, and practice to give good wishes and love to everyone. Do this every single day. Practice it, practice it, practice it, practice it. And if all of us do this collectively, then our brothers and sisters who are still kind of lost in the maze will start to feel a thought coming, a feeling as if that's enough for me. I don't want to keep going in that direction anymore. And that's a practice that I'm really asking you all to do, especially as we roll over to 2011, because it is the need of our time. To practice to love everyone. We might hear that like in our personal relationships, right? That we spent 5 years, 10 years in a relationship, we made promises and we made commitments to each other. And we don't know what actually happens, but somewhere along the way, one person or the other, it's not that they stop loving the other person, but something internally is no longer being fed by that person. And in all reality, perhaps it never really was. But there were other factors involved that were like a band-aid in the relationship until ... to be continued. And I was speaking to someone the other day, and they were talking about a relationship that they were in, which has been very challenging, and they're still in the relationship. I don't know where the thought came from, but I said, well, you went into the relationship in pieces anyway. It's just that there are a little bit more pieces now. It's not that the person had actually picked up your pieces and started to fix you. We enter these relationships in pieces, and then they get a little bit more broken. And what happens is that in some cultures we tend to exchange relationships just way too quickly, not realizing that it's making the heart break a little bit more. And you know, when you break fine china, if the pieces get really, really smaller, it's really harder to put them together. But if you break something and it's just a few big pieces, get me some crazy glue, I can put it on. And it's like a puzzle. If it's a 40-piece puzzle, it's easy. But if it's one of those 1,000 ones, you ever had one of those 1,000 ones? So those 1,000 puzzles, it's like forever easy to put it together. And that's why I always recommend to students and friends that come, to our meditation doors, if you're out of a relationship, don't go try to run into another one, because the pieces are still there. And I must tell you that one of the most amazing, amazing relationships that you can have is with yourself. There's this person living inside of us who needs your attention. And if you don't give that person attention, they're going to throw out their discontentment on the other person. And it doesn't matter how much that person is giving to you, it's never going to be enough for them. And so there is this little person inside that is saying, can you remember me? I'm here. And you're like, yeah, sit down. So, where's that? And you, and wow, that looks nice over there. And you're kind of sitting in yourself like, okay, in this little corner. And then finally you do something really nice for yourself, and you're all happy with yourself for like 10 minutes. And then your friend comes, this person comes, and that person comes, And then as you look back at history, and you really look back at stories, if you watched enough soap operas, enough love stories, and enough dramas, it's all the same repetition, it's the same game. It's like the same game, it's nothing new anymore under the sun. So why am I getting caught up in that? Somebody wrote me an email the other day. Someone that I offered quite a lot of my time and energy to this person, and I went out of my way to make this person's visit somewhere to just be comfortable. But this person wanted 110% of my time, which is not possible for me to give any one person. I don't even give it to myself, much less to give it to another human being. So the person sent in this long, like 10-page letter, all the things and this and that and this person and then you and you never did this and that. And as I read the letter, the only thing I could feel was compassion. Because what lied at the source of her discontentment, in which she projected on me, was the fact that she was screaming at me to say, can you at least show me how I can love myself? That was actually what she was trying to tell me. And even though I might have said, well, in the study, God has said you are a soul, consider yourself a soul, and then remember me in your experience. Peace, purity, and happiness, which are all the things we're running for in a human relationship. And she's like, yeah, but I really want to this with you. It's you. I want to spend time with you. I want to hang out with you. I'm like, okay, so then sometimes we're just not ready. There's some karmic energy inside of the soul that is saying, it's not time for you to experience love. But you must not stop putting in the effort required to get there. We become way too impatient too quickly if I don't get love tomorrow. Then I just get all messed up inside, play that loner card, or I start to maybe do drinking, or go out, or just end up with the worst people. All these things that emerge as a result of that because I'm not patient. Perhaps my true love is waiting for me. But I'm rushing into so many relationships that even when my true love comes, I'm so broken I can't even see them. And that's why when we were young, our parents used to say, wait, just wait, okay? Just the right person will come, just wait. And then you're like 16, they came. No, they didn't. Like 18, they're here. Then 21, oh, this is the one. This is definitely the one. And you're going, no, it's not the one, And so it happens to us because we're just not patient. Myself and brother was having a chit-chat the other day, and we were talking about how souls with a lot of desires lose their opportunity for fortune. Because when you're so caught up in the desire, you don't even have a chance to see the moment of opportunity, because the desire is not a pure desire. But the opportunity is there, but you're caught up in the desire. And I was sharing with him that when I was a young, budding little spiritual person, I used to want to be like what's known as our daddies, which are our elders. She's like 95. I said, wow, I'd love to be like that, Maybe in about a year or two I can fix that out and work that out. So I tried and I did all that thing. And I could see where I deceived myself. I forced something to happen that didn't need to happen. I wasn't completely happy doing everything the way that I thought I was supposed to be doing it. I tried to act like I was really perfect because daddies were all perfect. These were the elders. I never saw them do anything wrong. So I forced myself to be real perfect, and I was really stressed out, trying to be perfect when everything inside was imperfect. And then one day I realized, what am I doing? I'm not happy doing this. This is not truth. It's not real. My time will come. Whenever that is, it'll come on its own time. I don't have to go after it. If it's meant to happen, it will happen. And we will all get our chance. We will all get a chance. It'll all come to you what you think you deserve, the kind of companion you think you deserve. It will come at the right time. Just don't push it away because of your hurt or your karmas of the past. Now, similarly, in terms of our country, are we pushing away the abundance of our country because we're still thinking that, well, this country in the last maybe 15, 20 years used to do a lot for us? You know, the Clinton era where we, our surplus was 7 trillion. Then in the Bush era, it went into 7 trillion deficit. And now in the Obama era, we're still in a deficit and we're trying to climb out of it. And what we might be thinking is, well, back in the days, but we're not back in the days. We are here now. And I want my chance to come back where I can live a life that I feel safe. And in order for us to practice this feeling of safety, we have to watch our actions. We have to watch what we're thinking, what we're saying, and what we're doing in our relationships. And it starts with yourself. Fix your heart. Use meditation. Have a relationship with God. And start to fix your heart before you enter another relationship. Before America tries to enter another country to try to protect its borders and to protect the war and terrorism, it should fix itself. And I think that as a country we need to start to fix ourselves more than to be caught up along in the external world and other countries and other factors. We need to take care of our own people and make our people stronger so that we can endure the challenges that are going to come in the next few years to us. Economically, emotionally, physically, we're all going to be challenged in this country. Because we can't just leave it up to one person as the Godhead to fix it. We have to support everything. We have to be supporters because we have a stake in this. And we can't keep blaming the person who's in the position of leadership. Well, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. Well, why weren't you elected the leader then?
Yeah.
They're there for some reason. They have some qualification. There's a role that they have to play. So why are you trying to kick the leader off of their seat, saying you can do it better? Then do it. Then do it. Do it in your small little community. Do it in your home. How well are you leading your own home? How well are you leading your office? How well are you leading your city, your school? So imagine what he's got to deal with.
There's a jazz singer, Rochelle Farrell. One of her songs starts out with, "Is that your own thought you're thinking?"
Interesting.
Is that your own thought you're thinking? And
Like that.
what brought that to mind was early on in our relationship, when you greeted me, not only would we look at each other in the eyes, but you would say, "I see you." And I knew that you saw my authentic self. Not this, but my authentic self. Because you often said that your eyes lead to the soul, no?
The key to the soul.
The
yes.
key to the soul.
Yeah.
So I wonder, as countrymen and women, if we looked at each other in the eyes long enough, what would we see?
Beauty.
Beauty.
It's the core of the soul. There was I think it's an old movie now called Avatar, and everyone kept telling me, "Sister Jenny, you have to see this movie," but I just couldn't.
I saw it 5 times.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Okay, so I won't say anything. But I just couldn't see myself looking at blue people. people for like 2-3 hours with tails. So I kind of had a little issue with that, you know. And I just don't want to see that in my head all the time. But I do remember everyone saying, Sister Jenna, it is so much the path of the Brahma Kumaris. It's the way that you all are living. If the whole world could only see the way that you all are living, it's just like the movie Avatar. And the Swahili, in this culture, this part in Africa, I think it's in Kenya, there's a story about a young guy who was in school, and he had his hand up, you know, for the teacher to kind of, you know, point out at him. So he went home really sad, and he told his mother that his teacher doesn't like him. My teacher just doesn't like me. And the mother says, why do you think your teacher doesn't like me? He said, well, every time I have my hand up, she never sees me. So there's a very huge feeling that we get when we feel that we are seen. We feel recognized. We feel acknowledged. We feel loved. So in Swahili, they don't say, I love you. They say, I see you. So when somebody says, I see you, it means, I really see you.
Yeah.
So I've accepted and loved you as you are, without trying to make you into something else for me. So I see you. I see you. You know, and this is so beautiful. And in the Brahma Kumaris movement, which is a beautiful spiritual organization with 6,000 branches now in over 120 countries, you have 1 million students in 120 countries saying, I see you. Every time they pass you by and they look at you, there's a language in the community known as drishti, D-R-I-S-H-T-I. And drishti means spiritual vision. And what spiritual vision is about is where you practice having a relationship with yourself. You practice having a relationship with the Supreme Soul. And when that feeling and that connection in you is pretty solid, you can now begin to see another. Because now you're seeing you. So then you know what lies at the core of another soul. Because you could look at somebody and all you can see is their defects.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that. That's what actually is the cause for majority of marriages turning into divorces. Did you know that?
No.
Didn't know that?
No, I didn't know.
Didn't know that, good. Well, let me tell you. What happened was, in the marriage, the first moment you saw something wrong with your spouse, it broke the love.
That's just like with our president. The
It
first
chipped.
Yeah.
You ever had like a beautiful figurine and it just chipped? Like you just had a little chip, you go, it's not that bad, it's just a chip. But you know it's no longer perfect. Then you kind of did another thing, you get another chip. Oh, let me turn it this way so nobody can see it. Right? And then what happens in the marriage is that you start to see something wrong with your partner. And maybe you might mention it and say, you know, hon, last night when we were at dinner and you talked about my hair, it kind of made me feel a little bit self-conscious. Could you like not do that again? Because I'd rather that stay private. And if he says, yes, okay, hon, no problem. Then he goes back out, he does the same thing again. It's like it starts to go inside of the soul. Something starts to happen when we start to emphasize on the defect of our partners. And one of the things in the Brahma Kumaris that we are taught is to not do that. To see the defects of a person. Because not only does it kill the love in you, it reduces the love in you. Then when the love in you starts to reduce, because we're not strong enough to face that, we start to project it on the partner. And then 1 year turns into 3 years, and 4 years, and 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and that defect is still there, but the defect now, as an energy in your memory track, is increasing as a feeling, thus making you feel separated from this person you once loved. And for the life of you, you don't know why your love has changed. It was because you saw a defect in your partner.
So we see a defect in our country, and that's why we don't love our country.
We're right. And you know, one of the things that always irks me is I've heard so many people who are immigrants in the country, and they'll say, oh, this America, America's this, America's that, and that's when I become really unspiritual. And I'll be like, well, you know, you could always buy your ticket back from where you came from, because what's the problem? When the country was doing well, you had no problems. Okay, we're not doing so well. Can you help, please? That's just what you do. It's just what you do. You don't enter into a relationship and just because it's just not working out tomorrow, you go, well, that's it. I'm leaving. You find a way to see how you can work it out. And then try to make some results.
So the love for our country should be manifested in the way that we treat our country.
And it must come from the way that you treat yourself.
Yes, I believe that.
If you're very self-centered, you don't think too much about the well-being of the world outside of your door. But if you're selfless, the fact that you can think about the well-being outside of the door means the ones who live inside of your door are also taken care of. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so pure selfishness means everyone is benefited. But when there's impure selfishness, the only one that benefits is you. And so if our country can change that paradigm of selfishness to selflessness, and trust that that formula works wholeheartedly, this country can really get back on its feet.
So could we start that in this room?
I think so. I was in Doha a few weeks ago, and I just, every time I travel, I meet somebody. And there was this, I don't know if he was from Saudi, not Qatar, he was from Saudi Arabia. And he heads about 20 insurance companies in the Middle East. He was the vice president of this big chain of insurance companies. We had a tremendously beautiful conversation for about 3 hours in the lounge area. But there's one story he told me that in the Middle East they have this conversation about America's economy. And he was saying it was like Shakespeare said it, that when it gets to the point of no return, that's when the laughter begins. And what he was saying is that sometimes when it seems like there's no hope, you've got to find a sense of humor to the game. Because I think they've got these new two journalists, Colbert and something. What's the name?
I don't watch it.
Stewart, John Stewart and Colbert.
Okay, right. So I hear that there are these two journalists now who basically put a comical spin on the situation of our country, but they're well informed about what's going on in the country and how beautiful it is that you can take something as devastating as such a thriving economy just a few years ago and find humor in it and to still try to find resolve. And so I think that we need to move away from this seriousness of things and just become like children, somebody who plays with a toy here today and goes with this toy tomorrow, and goes to this, and just be free-spirited and light. But as adults, we also need to learn the natural and spiritual laws of our world and of our souls. So there's a need to take care of the soul. There's a need for the soul to be a well-wisher, and then our country will benefit from the way that we take care of ourselves.
So we should practice what you recommended every morning.
Every morning, love everyone from your mind. Every morning, practice giving good wishes to every single soul on the planet Earth. Do this every day. Sit inside of yourself as a soul behind your eyes connect to God, the Supreme Soul, and when you start to feel love from God inside of you, then merge all your brothers and sisters throughout the entire world and let the love that you're feeling from God to flow through them and to them every day. You practice this and trust that when it's the right time, the right moment, one of your brothers and sisters will feel somebody's loving them from a distance and will give them hope.
That's beautiful.
It's our latest homework from Mount Abu.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We had a beautiful meeting a few days ago, and the biggest emphasis was on you've got to help your brothers and sisters. And in order for you to help your brothers and sisters, you have to change your old habits. You have to change your old behavior. You have to change your old personality. Your old personality is getting in your way of loving and experiencing love that is pure. And your old personality and your old way is getting in the way for everyone to recognize that God has come and God is teaching. That we're getting stuck in a child and forgetting who was the creator. And so as a method to change our personality, the homework that has been given to us is every morning. I didn't want to tell you to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you, Janet.
You're welcome, just in case. But if you can get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, knowing that somebody needs you, your family of the world needs you, because without them you can't exist, and without you they can't exist. And so when we practice our meditation, we turn our thoughts and our feelings behind our eyes, and we start to think from there that I am a soul, and my original religion of the soul is purity, it is peace. And then I remember the address. There's an address. Do you have the address? Do you have your address where you came from? Do you have the soul address? So it's called in Hindi Paramdam, Muktidam, Shantidam. In Islam, Bahisht. In Buddhism, Nirvana. In Christianity, heaven. In scientific term, the sixth element of light. I just call it the soul world. That's my address. How do I get there? I've got to have a pure thought first. Second, it's nowhere here on planet Earth. It's not on the moon. It's past the sun. It's beyond the galaxy of the universe. And as soon as you can't think about anything physical, you've just reached home. That's the address. It's called the land of silence. And in the soul world is your mother, father, the Supreme Soul waiting for you with open arms. As an ocean of love, an ocean of peace, and an ocean of purity. And when the soul connects to God and starts to send those vibrations to all the brothers and sisters first thing in the morning, you are changing yourself and you're helping a fellow brother along the way. If after today you observe your life, if there's any relationship that you feel you're not comfortable with, I can guarantee you're not getting love. Any relationship that's not working for you, you're not giving love. Now remember what love is. It's something you have to have inside of you. So in order for that love to be experienced, the meditation on God or the soul is essential in order to let that happen. So I want this country, which I call home at this time, America, to thrive. And I'm convinced the only thing this country needs right now is spirituality. It has everything else. It has everything else. Other countries have spirituality but no money. This country has a lot, but needs more spirituality. And if each one of us tonight contributes that, we've made a difference to the country. And since this country tends to influence the rest of the world, imagine if America became spiritual, what would happen to the rest of the world?
Yeah.
Wow. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be a beautiful story? Oh, I would love to see that. To just see a civilization of people secure. Spiritually secure. Right.
Well, in closing, I will have a greater love for myself and a greater love for my country and a greater love for our leaders.
Yeah.
Because it's important to me to have a healthy relationship with my country, and I have to set the example. Yes?
Yeah, very well said. And we'll close on that because I think that's important. It comes back to what I am doing. What am I doing here? What am I contributing? Just recently we were having a conversation about why does God never say thank you? He only says congratulations. Congratulations. It's because he doesn't have to say thank you. You're not doing him a favor. But when you do good deeds, you have gotten the idea, you have gotten the formula. So when you're doing good deeds, you're making your fortune great. So what he would tell you is, congratulations, you've got it. Now the ball is in your hands. You can make and create whatever you want out of your life. Just don't sit back and waste it. Don't have waste thoughts about others. Don't see defects about anyone. Don't see your own defects, but be aware of them and change them. And keep generating good wishes and pure feelings to all the souls of the world. And you'll understand the power of true love and the power of self-transformation. This is my contribution to America and to the whole entire world. Om Shanti.